States bank that collapsed just days. Many of you guys have heard about Silicon Valley Bank's collapse. What this means for us, this is breaking news and this is a big deal. Hi, this is Noelle Randall, real estate entrepreneur, mentor, speaker, author, mama five, and so much more. And I just had to go live here and tell you guys about this big bank collapse that's just happening. It's trending everywhere. All of my students and fans and subscribers and followers and everybody, even my millionaire, billionaire friends have been calling me talking about this bank collapse and what is my opinion on it. What does Noelle think? How does this affect them? Even my millionaire friends literally have called me and said, Noelle, what do you think about this bank collapse? Because many of you guys already know I'm a real estate millionaire. I have lots of businesses, but more importantly, I used to work at big banks. I used to be a vice president at JP Morgan Chase Bank. I was a assistant vice president at Wells Fargo. I have been in banking. I basically worked at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase. I've worked at a lot of big banks. So a bank failure is a really, really big deal. First and foremost, let me explain this to you. So, like I said, we have Silicon Valley Bank, which is in California, okay? It's based in Silicon Valley. And it was a bank that was really kind of it targeted and was a big bank for startups, okay? It was for tech companies. It was really like a bank that those companies use. And so a lot of tech companies have really been affected by this bank collapse because, what does that mean if a bank fails? Well, that's a big deal. Obviously, the bank is failing, meaning that they have more outgoing than they have incoming. People came and started withdrawing money, and there was a run on the bank with all of these withdrawals. And as they started selling off things, that created a panic, and people started asking for withdrawals, and the bank became insolvent. So then what happens is, of course, is bank regulators, they come in and they have to take over the bank. And that is a really, really big deal. So it is incredible what has happened. This is the second largest bank failure in United States history, okay? So the biggest bank failure in United States history, or the last one that we saw that was a major bank failure, was Washington Mutual, okay? Washington Mutual Bank, some of you guys, I'm only 42, and I remember Washington Mutual Bank. I remember Wachovia, okay? And it was crazy when this bank failed. It was a really, really big deal, and that was a part of the financial crash, the crash that we had in 2008 and 2009 in the United States. And so many people are concerned, is this the beginning, this bank failure, the Silicon Valley Bank, is them failing? Is this an indicator of what's going to happen in the global market? Is this going to have that same impact that happened in the company? It's so funny. I feel like the car is driving. It's so funny. So we're driving around the neighborhood. It's so funny. It's okay. I have, guys are in my car, and it's so fun. This is why I had to go live. But it's funny. I'm so sorry. We're just properties, and my assistant was like, we got to turn the camera on, sis, and talk to people about this. So second of all, let me take a quick diversion. Again, if you want to see me in person, I'm teaching a virtual event. You don't have to leave your home. Go to noelleschallenge.com and get your tickets. Tickets are super inexpensive. I'll be teaching for 2 full days, and I'll be breaking down some of the things that I'm talking about in this video, but more importantly, how to set your business up where you're not even worried about these different bank collapses and the financial stuff that's happening. You're set up your business where you have the capital that you need, you have the business credit that you need, and you're buying real estate assets that are valuable. So that is what the challenge is about. So you can truly grow your wealth. Get your tickets at noelleschallenge.com. Okay, so that's right there. All right, so let's keep going with this. So another thing with this bank collapse, like I said, since this is the second largest bank failure in the United States history, okay, the United States of America, this bank failing, there are some major people that are going to be impacted. And that was probably the thing that I thought was the most concerning. Okay, like I said, because Silicon Valley Bank is not one of the major banks, it was not as big as Washington Mutual per se. It does have a lot of money on deposit, and it would have a lot of big companies that had lots and lots of money on deposit with this bank. For example, Roku, ROKU. I know you guys have seen the Roku on the TVs, on our smart TVs. Well, Roku is a large tech company, right? And so they had a lot of money on deposit with SVB, with Silicon Valley Bank. In fact, I believe it was millions, billions, okay? Then another company that you may have heard of, Etsy, right? ETSY. You guys heard of Etsy, where you can buy crafts and you can, sell your products there? Etsy had millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on on deposit at Silicon Valley Bank. Okay, so that's another major player. Then we talk about Circle, Circle like a circle. That's actually an app, very similar, to maybe, gosh, let me think. What is Circle like? Because we actually use Circle in our business, and we pay a lot of money to connect our students, and our students are able to use Circle to communicate with each other, to communicate with our coaches and things like that. So Circle is one of the companies that had like hundreds of millions of dollars on deposit with Silicon Valley Bank. Now, let me tell you what that means, because okay, these companies, these big companies, Roku, just Roku, Etsy, and Circle. Let me just give you those three, for example. If they have hundreds of millions of dollars, in fact, over billions when you add them all up, on deposit with this bank, you might already know, right, that when you open a bank account, it's only insured. Each account is only insured. Each individual person in their account is only insured by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Commission or Corporation. I forget what it stands for. FDIC insures up to $250,000 per account. Now, for most people, that is plenty. You know what I mean? Most of us do not have over $250,000 in cash in the checkings or the savings account. That's what most people just, they don't really have more than that. But as a business, oh, you absolutely have way more than that, especially these big companies. They have millions and billions. $250,000 is nothing for them. In some cases, that wouldn't even cover 1 week's worth of payroll. You know what I mean? That wouldn't even cover the mortgage, you know what I mean, on their buildings and some of the things like that. So if you think about, if you have, I'm gonna just use a round number, you have $100 million deposited at Silicon Valley Bank, right? And they collapse. So now it's under receivership from the government. But at the same time, if the government is not able to sell off enough assets or to make you to recoup your money, the most that the FDIC has to insure is $250,000. So that's like 99,907. Wait, oh God, let me do my math right quick. That would be, what is 100 million minus $250,000? Still like 90. It's over. It's almost $100 million. You get what I'm saying? Like, do the math to that. It's like 99,975,000 that you would lose. Okay, you know what I mean? You have $100 million and someone hands you $250,000. You're like, no, where's my other 99,900,750? You get what I'm saying? Like, that is incredible. And so literally these companies are freaking out, rightfully so, because quite frankly, their business could be in jeopardy over this bank collapse. Think about that. They may not be able to make payroll if they can't get access to their money. They may not be able to continue as a business if Silicon Valley Bank was their primary place where they held most of their cash and their working capital, and they don't have access to it, or they lose it altogether because the bank is insolvent. OMG, would that be bad for so many tech companies? Okay, so many companies that had large amounts of money deposited with Silicon Valley Bank could literally be affected. Some of them could go out of business. It could trigger where their vendors go out of business. Like, think about that for a second. If you're a big company and you make hundreds of millions of dollars, so that's one thing. You have the money and now you don't have access to it. But guess what? You have other people that depend on your business. Think about how many businesses need Roku to be in effect. You get what I'm saying? They don't need Roku to go out of business. There's so many vendors, suppliers, employees, other companies that are affiliates. So many people rely on that business, especially once you get to that level. So it could trigger a domino effect where if this business goes out of business, and these other businesses, and this is crazy, terrible effect that happens on the economy. So that is the thing, okay? And again, so let me talk to you and not go into the weeds, okay? I love y'all to death. This is Noelle, Randall here. Like I said, I mostly talk about real estate and cars and side hustles, but this is important. This is so important. Like, a bank collapse and what's going on in the economy can affect your business. right? It can affect your business. And this is something that you should know. And this is why this was trending and why I took the time to say, yes, let's turn the camera on. I know I just got my hat on and I'm looking casual, but let's talk about this for a second. What does this bank collapse mean for the regular person, especially someone that has a business or maybe even is afraid, like, man, is my money protected? Should I be investing in banks? Should I be in doing this? What could this trigger? Could it collapse? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because that's big. So think about this. Could other banks start to fail because Silicon Valley Bank failed? Yeah, it absolutely could happen. Now, as we get more information and find out not only who were some of the big people, I just told you three big tech companies that had a lot of money on deposit with Silicon Valley Bank. Okay, so obviously those companies, all of the companies that had a lot of money deposited, could be affected and could possibly go out of business or be harmed financially or end up in bankruptcy. Things like that could happen. That's the first thing. Then that would trigger other people to lose their jobs, unemployment. It could cause so many things because if Roku doesn't have access to all of their working capital, for example, they may have to do a layoff. As people start to get laid off, what happens? They lose their job, they start to lose their homes, they stop a bank collapses and if other banks could collapse. Because one of the things that you got to look at not only is, okay, who did have big deposits, but what else did Silicon Valley Bank invest in? Okay, did they invest in other banks? Because you get that a bank can invest in other banks. So there's lots of ways banks make money. Obviously, they take cash in and then they could do mortgage loans, they could do credit cards, they can do auto loans. They lend out the money that they have at a higher interest rate. So they make money. That's one. But another thing that banks do is they invest. You get that, right? And oftentimes banks invest in other banks. So there could be banks that invested in Silicon Valley Bank. That's one thing. And Silicon Valley Bank could have invested in things that are failing, which is really, if I take you all the way back to the beginning, where some of this started. Okay. So let me tell you how this whole bank collapse kind of started, the run, and where people were just asking for their money back and causing a situation where Silicon Valley Bank was like, oh crap, we are having to give too many withdrawals versus how much money we have. So Silicon Valley Bank, like I said, they invest, okay? They invest in lots of tech companies. They invest in lots of startups. Well, what happens when those startups start taking their money out? So say they have $200 million and they say, give me $100 million of my dollars back. And Silicon Valley Bank is like, well, I kind of lent that money out. I'm investing that money. I don't really have that capital to give to you because I lent it out for other investments. So that's kind of what happened. So some larger companies started asking for large deposits of their money back. So Silicon Valley Bank, in order to get the money so that they had the money for those withdrawals, started selling off their investments and some of their bonds. And that triggered for people like investors like, oh crap, something's going on there. And so people were super freaked out by this. And this is the type of thing, which is why I'm always like, all right, you need to come to the Grow Your Wealth Challenge. You need to go to noelleschallenge.com and get your tickets and learn with me for 2 full days on which banks you should be getting money for, which banks are lending to startups. Because here's the thing, it's so funny. Most of y'all probably had never even heard of Silicon Valley Bank until they collapsed. But guess what? They've been lending to startups and to tech companies for years. So just think about that. They've been out here lending money, doing things, giving to startups, and you didn't even know they exist. But guess what? I know lots of lenders and banks that lend to startups too, especially ones that do like real estate, or maybe they do landscaping businesses, or side hustles that we think are like side hustles, like rental cars and things like that. Though there's tons of banks that lend to just those industries. Okay, and so this is why you want to come to the Grow Your Wealth Challenge, so you can find out about these banks that could lend to you and give you money to help your business. Because Roku obviously got money from Silicon Valley Bank, which is why they had their money on deposit with them. So it's time for you to start getting on the other side of this. Stop worrying about all of these things, being concerned, and start making money. Go to noelleschallenge.com so I can teach you all about which banks are lending you money and how you can always make money in these situations. Because there is going to be a crazy recession coming, but certain markets are not going to be affected at all. And there's going to be so many opportunities for you. So, all right, I'm about to go look at some of these properties. We actually are in the neighborhood now. We've reached here. We go look at some of these real estates. We got some foreclosures that we're going to be looking at, and that is where the money is. So stop worrying about all these bank failures. There are going to be some, but it really has nothing to do with real estate at this time. We're buying the right properties. We're buying them at a discount, and we're making money off of them, and you should be doing the same thing. All right, go to noelleschallenge.com and get your tickets right now. I just want to make sure that you have all of the resources, all the tools, and all of the knowledge that you need for your success. This is Noelle. To your success.